All right. What's going on, man?
What's going on?
Back on another episode of Watch Your Mouth. Welcome back to episode 6. Today we have guest Camilo Zapata. Camilo and I actually went to school together. He's a Studio Alumni of mine. We had studio together in some instances, and then over the last summer, we took a few classes together, and we shared a lot of cool common interests. Just want to get those out in the open. We're gonna have an open dialogue about certain things like Air Maxes, music, cars, competition shooting. So stick around for some dope shit. But all right, man, you're welcome. Thank you for taking the time out, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, anytime, bro. I think this platform and just the whole podcast in general is such a good way to like catch up with people and just see what's going on with everybody and I guess network is I guess a professional word for it, but like I miss everybody from studio, man. That camaraderie is something really special.
Yeah, there's something to be said about, the amount of hours that we spend with everybody there, Not to mention it's such a kind of like a creative environment that everybody's always, shooting ideas back and forth. So yeah, it's definitely, but I really like what you're doing with the podcast, man.
Thank you.
I think it's a great idea, especially now during the quarantine, it's almost like perfect for this,
Yeah,
so.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. But I think we'll go through some of these ideas, and I kind of just want to get your feedback on some of these ideas about school, studio, and then just the creative thought process. Just because I think there's something to be said about the things we're drawn to and what that makes us as designers and creatives, and I really want to get your perspective on some of those things. What would you say was something that you explored a lot through the studio, through architecture school?
As far as like inspiration and stuff like that, looking back, I kind of want to say that my sorry, that's my dog.
No, no worries, man.
I want to say that it kind of switched a lot. When I look back on D1, I was very much into like parametricism, stuff like that.
Yeah,
and that sort of, I don't want to say evolved, but throughout the years of studying, I started moving more towards kind of a more minimalistic kind of architecture, more, I don't know, kind of the parametricism thing. I feel like I explored it, and even though I'm still very much in love with it and what it can do, I kind of, I felt like I kind of moved on, So yeah, different things. I think as far as inspiration, I think it's important to try to dip your toes in things that you're not normally drawn to, right?
Okay.
Because everybody's going to have their interest, and naturally they're going to, look into those things. But I think it's also important to kind of, like you were saying, like the studio environment, bouncing ideas off each other. So maybe somebody, shows you an architect that you haven't heard of, or, somebody's into some, brutalism as opposed to, tectonics or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you start to, look into different forms of inspiration,
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
But yeah, what would you say was something you were very proud of? Like I kind of run into this common theme of me personally. I was a little, I guess, distraught with the way my thesis went, from personal execution and stuff like that. But I was very proud of what the project was and like what it became.
Okay.
So I like to hear everybody's like idea on that, I guess.
Well, what is it you didn't like about your thesis?
I think with me specifically, I spent a lot of time on details that I guess I didn't show off properly. Like I executed in the project, but when it came time to show off the project and really, really present it visually. I very much fell off in that part. But I think my presentation was one of my best. I think that was usually my strong suit, was presenting. And I think that helped elevate and make up for the lack of visual, I guess, pinpoints that I could have had.
Right.
But now, now looking back at it, school was a learning experience, so I could just move forward with the experience.
Yeah, I think that like everybody kind of goes through that, like everybody. The thing about, or at least I've experienced with, design and stuff like that, is that it's never done, no matter how much time. I mean, we poured hours and hours, and we're, sometimes 40, 60 hours into a project, and it always feels like there's one more thing I could have done. There's one thing that I could have done better, or you look back on your project and you're like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, But that's just, I don't know. I feel like that's just a sign of growth, So in your case, yeah, perhaps looking back, you were like, oh, I could have presented this better,
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I think in especially like architectural presentations, you kind of have to have this kind of confidence, like this confidence in your project and your work and stuff like that. And I think I know a lot of people don't subscribe to this train of thought, but I never wrote down my speeches, my presentations, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I had some notes and stuff like that, but I want to say maybe in like our third or fourth year, I decided that either I know it's my project, and I know it in and out. It's been it's my baby. Nobody knows it better than me.
Yeah.
And I decided to just wing them. And sometimes that worked. A lot of times it didn't, but but it's part of the process. I don't know.
For sure.
The presentation parts of architecture is really kind of crazy, Like if you think about it, like the way how design school works, and I don't know if like some of your listeners know how necessarily it's structured,
Yeah.
But it's very, I don't know, like you're basically presenting in front of a group, and either they love it or they hate it. But I think it's. I had Felice. You remember Felice, our one of our professors?
Yeah.
She told me something in my second year that I'll never forget, and she said that basically, as long as your job as a designer is to start a conversation, right? And as long as you can say that you did that, even if they start arguing between how much one loves it and one hates it, or if one has one idea and somebody else has another, as long as you get that dialogue going, you've done your job as a designer, to provoke, a conversation. A conversation of architecture,
Yeah.
Architecture as a language, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. I think that came up in one of the presentations I did for D10. So kind of backstory as like Camilo was kind of saying, to clarify how certain design schools are structured. You go one design per semester usually. So this was the 10th semester of design, if you will. This is our final year, and we were tasked with designing a stadium, and we were paired in groups. So the first half of our semester was actually a competition in New York, and we had to do this stadium. And I remember Ramses and we decided to go a little bit more of the provocative route and be a little bit more playful with the idea. And we named the project, originally it was Brooklyn Parasite. And I remember of like the 6 crits, there was one person that was kind of like, oh, the work is great, the visualization is great, the narrative is great, but I would be careful with the idea of using the word parasite because it does have a negative connotation. And, everybody kind of was like quiet. And then I just responded. I was like, the idea of a design competition, usually, because they don't get built, is usually to start a conversation and a dialogue. And I think it did that. And everybody was kind of like, wow, how could you like talk to a juror that way? And he was quiet for a second and then he agreed. So, I was like, yeah, so clearly the name did its job. And I think that goes 100% with what you were saying. Like your idea is or your job is to start a dialogue when you're designing, even down to the name and narrative.
Yeah. I think we have a habit of, it's, these projects are our babies, right? Like, so when we stand up and you have to do a presentation or something, it becomes very difficult not to take things personally sometimes, even if they're just trying to help, even if, I don't think I've ever had a juror that was intentionally cruel. Sometimes honesty isn't, sometimes they don't, aren't so sweet about it, but man, I think it's an important stage when you stop kind of looking at the jurors as people that are there to judge you.
Yeah.
And you really start, looking forward to these kind of presentations just for professional feedback, and just being like, just be honest with, what it is, and if they don't like it, they don't like it. But okay, well, how, it's important to start that conversation. Well, this is my thought process. Professor Jelpy, Professor Jelpy was known for being brutally honest, and I remember I had a midterm or something that it wasn't going well. Like it was not going well.
Yeah.
And he stood up and, and he liked it. And then it almost seems like we share like this hive mentality that if somebody spots somebody negative, everybody's going to spot something negative.
Absolutely.
The moment he said something positive, then everything else was, this is good,
Yeah.
So, I've gotten some really great feedback, from presenting.
Yeah.
And, I mean, as far as the whole parasite thing,
like it was a competition entry. So like, our idea was, okay, let's be a little provocative with it. And he hit the nail on the head, which is what we were going for. So I think it was good. And things like that are important. And kind of like what you said, man, like these people are here to offer a professional perspective. They're not the end all be all, but you should definitely, take what they have to say with a grain of salt, but understand that they've been at this a lot longer than you have. So you should probably, take the understanding.
100%. It's definitely an interesting kind of way, because we don't take necessarily tests like everybody else.
Right.
Our kind of exams are, you're given a project, you're giving so much time to develop it, and to create models and drawings, and then at the end of 2 weeks, a month, however long, you need to present your stuff, and then those are our exams, so which it's a good thing / bad thing, I guess, right? I mean, I don't know, I've seen people break down crying, and
I think normally in studio, you kind of see those people that do break down and like kind of like get emotionally I guess disheveled out of the whole project. And I think it's safe to say like those people care a lot, because they've invested so much emotionally into the project that when they have a shortcoming, their initial idea is, or their initial response is to kind of like break down, which I guess shows a lot of investment. But at the same time, you should remember that these presentations are not to stress you out, like you said earlier. They're not like a personal attack, and you're not your work, you know. And this is only here to help you grow as a designer. So I think public feedback and criticism, constructive criticism, should always be welcomed. And if people are struggling with that, it's something that you should practice.
Maybe it's not the field for you.
Or that, yeah. No, 100%. I agree. If you find yourself constantly being troubled or not really sure when it comes to like public speaking or public displays or performance, I don't really think that you'll last in the field, unfortunately, just to be blunt, because I consider myself pretty timid most of the time. But you know, when it comes to that presentation day, you gotta kind of toss that aside.
Animal.
Yeah. yeah. I have to be in that mindset, bro.
But I think that's something you learn, you know? I mean, like,
yeah.
As far as you know, as being afraid and stuff like that, you know, art is pain, man. You know, that's the end of the day. You suffer for your art, and that's part of it. You know, it's getting up there and sometimes getting a bad crit, and you know, and sometimes you could work on something for weeks and weeks, and you present, and they never even look at it. You know, like they just completely ignore it, and they hark on one little thing. You know, and yeah, it's fun though, man. It's, you know, I can't complain. I want to say looking back was some of the hardest years, man. Like, it really was difficult. You know, people say that it was going to be hard, but it was hard.
You don't understand the level of difficulty in multiple, I guess, spectrums. You know, you go through a mental hardening, or like you go through this grit that really helps you with thinking through a problem.
Like Fight Club, man.
Absolutely. Have you looked at any other means of expression as like art or design other than architecture specifically?
I'm really into photography, I like photography. I've always been into drawings, sketching, stuff like that. For me, photography really kind of lend itself well with architecture, not just because of, the obvious nature of architecture, because architecture is very visually, like based, so for me, photography kind of, how do I put it?
Like facilitated some areas of architecture that you liked, but it let you express it in your own, I guess, freedom.
I guess when I don't know, like, I guess for me, like, art of any medium really is kind of like like trying to give emotion like a physical form, right? And for photography, to me, I've always seen it as like capturing that emotional moment. So it was kind of like telling somebody a secret, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you take a photo and, perhaps, there was some kind of emotion, behind that picture, and then you show it to somebody, and if they can kind of read that, and it's the same with kind of architecture, like architecture, it's all these moves, and that we put a lot of thought into it, but it's not until somebody else comes along and says, yeah, I could see, I feel like kind of like the emotion behind this, you know?
Yeah, or the intention.
Yeah, that's always like rewarding to me. So
Yeah,
that's but
because you do a lot of, or at least I remember there was one point in studio where you did some candid shots, and I thought those were super dope, man. Let me tell you, like the idea of capturing something that you don't even expect is
because it's honest. That's why.
There you go.
It's honest. You tell anybody, I'm gonna take a picture, they immediately, kind of stiffen up or try to be pretty or whatever, And I feel like the candid shots always, I don't know, capture that moment,
Absolutely.
And that's what I always liked about it. It always made me look kind of weird in studio. I know people don't like getting the picture taken when they're not looking, but it is what it is,
Yeah, I think in the tight knit community that we have as designers in general, I think they kind of collaborate most of the time. But I think that studio setting is so tight knit that something like that's okay. People usually celebrate it, But yeah, man, I think
people always people have an issue at the beginning. And then you show them the photo, and if they like how they came out, then they're all in after that, But it's a little scary for them at first, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think one way that we can definitely, because I agree with you. I think photography is super dope. It's something that I've always looked at from afar, and I've been like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I take photos here and there on my phone, but I do have a DSLR that I want to know how to use it. Like I really want to get to know that camera and use it properly. So, I've been telling other photographers that we should go on shoots. I mean, this was obviously before the whole like quarantine situation and whatnot, but one of these days, man, we should link up and go to like a Cars and Coffee or something and just take some pictures, bro. I think it'd be super dope.
I think, I think a lot of people are kind of hung up on, I don't have a DSLR, so I can't take good photos or whatever. But, and I've been around a lot of, photographers that kind of throw shade at someone who might not know, as much as they do as far as editing or the settings. And, that's total, it's all bullshit, man. Like, just go out and shoot. Just go out. If you have to shoot with your phone, if you got a DSLR, no matter, just shoot, just shoot and, you'll pick up on it. It's you'll get a feel for what you like, what you don't like. And, you gotta, like I said, like brush a lot of these, people that say, oh, just because you have a DSLR doesn't make you a photographer. Bullshit. Everybody's a photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You just got to do it.
I think that goes kind of like to the iterative nature of architecture. Like kind of what you're saying is like the iterative nature of taking photos and capturing the emotion is kind of like what you said that really stuck with me is like, once you understand that and you understand that nature of like, you are capturing a moment. I think that's when you really start to realize like, oh, okay. And I'm doing something that makes sense now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think people just need to, as far as art, like the thing I love the most about art, it's so inclusive, right? Like it doesn't judge you by your medium or your technique, or it welcomes everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I want to do pottery and you want to do photography, somebody else wants to do painting, everything is art, and whether it's look at Pollock, and his work, and how some people love it and some people are just like, well, this is just random,
Don't understand it.
Yeah, so it's if I could tell anybody, just do what you love, man. Just
absolutely.
do it. Don't worry about your technique, or I mean, it'll come. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that 100%, man. I think the idea with art is that you're trying to invoke emotion, and as long as you're doing it for the right intent, then I think you're good. Like, and it's funny that you brought up different mediums. Like, I actually saw this. This is kind of gonna bleed into like one of the other topics I wanted to talk about. But this kid that I know from Palm Beach or from the South Florida area, he like designed a shoe for Nike or something like that. I have to go back and like read the article. It's on Hypebeast. They designed a pair of Air Max 90s, like one of ones, and a set of other shoes. I think they were all Air Max, but they designed one of ones for NFL draft players in the draft. So super dope. Like this pair of Air Max 90s. Let me see if I can screen share. I have it up here. Let me see if I can screen share. Let me know if you could see.
He did like he customized them, or he.
Yeah. Can you see the screen?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Those are dope.
Yeah, man. Like when I saw these, I was like, holy shit, that's dope. It was for Joe Burrow.
Oh yeah.
Heisman
Did he wear them?
What's that?
Did he actually wear them during the draft?
I don't know. I don't know how that came about, but let me go through some of the other ones. Like this was for the Oklahoma Sooners. Nice. These are nice. These are like whenever people do custom forces like this.
Yeah.
I think it's super dope. I actually want to grab a pair and do one for the platform, like do an Air Force One for Clique. And I want to talk to somebody about like shoe design or whatever they did to like kind of get into it, because it'd be super nice. Like Crimson Tide, like this is super dope. Like I think like when you go back to like mediums, like you were saying, this is definitely something that I think as architects we would explore more. Especially since I know you're a big fan of the Air Maxes.
Yeah, I love the Air Max.
Yeah,
I like the clean look. I like the clean design and stuff like that. I mean, you've seen what I do. Again, minimalism. Like it's subtle, but. But yeah, man, you should do it for the Clique thing. That would be awesome,
dude. I want to try it out. I got to see what that entails, because I keep seeing custom forces, and I'm like, dude, I would love to do a custom pair, like a white pair with like some yellow accents, and maybe like a black swoosh or some crazy shit like that. I don't know yet.
Yeah, but figure out what kind of dye, how is it that they go about that, because that just can't be like
Oh no, you can't just
simple. Yeah.
It's there's other things that I've seen like people do with those shoes is like I think it's water wrapping. I think it's called or hydro wrapping.
Hydro dipping, yeah.
Hydro dipping, yo.
Yeah.
That I've seen people try to do that on shoes, and it comes out good. And then I've seen people do tutorials and they mess it up because of the angle.
Yeah, it's complicated. I've had some experience with hydro dipping just because of the whole car thing, so it's a lot simpler to take like a complicated car piece and just dip it to get like elaborate designs on it than it is to sit there and actually do it on the actual part. So everybody in the car scene hydro dips or something like that.
Dope. What have you hydro dipped on your car, if you want to like introduce your car and like what you're running? And
I've done the panels, some of the panels, and probably gonna do the intake. But the thing with my car is that I subscribe to the less is more idea. I don't know. I don't think my car is too flashy. I drive just a regular car, just a couple things here and there, bro.
Yeah,
just a couple things. I don't know. I have dropped a ton of money into it though now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the car scene, I don't see a lot of architects driving muscle cars.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot, but I don't know. Maybe we could change that.
Yeah,
What's up with you're gonna do the Challenger or what?
I don't know, man. The more I looked at the Challenger, like I'm sure, I must be looking in a vacuum, but like I don't know. I keep trying to stray away from it. As dope of a car as it is.
Yeah. You're trying to convince yourself not to get it.
I think I don't know about that, but I think it's maybe I want to go with something more practical if I am gonna get a car soon.
Gotcha.
Because I need one because I don't really feel like doing a K swap on my Civic. So
yeah, do an LS swap on it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Man.
I don't know if that'll be the route I want to go through. But I want to get into cars, man. I've always loved cars, I guess from afar a little bit. But the engineering part of my mind has always wanted to tinker with this idea of something moving that you can do yourself and these moving parts and
right.
It's this form of expression that's more hands-on.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just an extension of me, it's, we're designers, man, exactly. Everything, if you can design something, change something, like this is good. If it was like this, it'd be a little nicer, So it's just tinkering with whatever you own, Yeah. So that's what it's been like for me.
Do you like how did you get into cars? Was that like something that you got into when you were younger, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a little older than you, so I grew up during the whole Fast and Furious, age of neon lights and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I was into cars, and then I went into the military.
Yeah. Dope. Thank you, man.
Did a couple tours in Iraq, and when I was in Iraq, we got a muscle car magazine over there, and they were announcing the redesigned Mustang, and I decided then I was gonna buy a Mustang. So the first thing I did when I got back home, was go out to the dealership and get bent over and railed for interest rates on a Ford Mustang, So So then again, it was just about. At first, it's interesting because it's like, well, I want to do this, but I don't want to pay to get it installed because it's so expensive.
Right.
Well, I'm just going to have to learn how to do it myself, And that's how it is, YouTube it, and give it a shot. And you just tinker. And then after a while, you just start, what everything is and how everything works. And you can do stuff yourself, save yourself a lot of money.
Yeah. Did you ever find that it was, I don't know if scary is the word, but like, I guess added a little bit of stress if you were modifying your daily driver?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, if it's your daily driver, a lot of people don't have money for
a daily
2 or 3 cars, or project cars or whatever.
Yeah.
So the thing with the dailies is that, like my Mustang is my daily, I drive it every day. So I think when I was doing I had to drop the rear suspension, and that, like, I knew right then and there. I was like, man, if I mess this up, dude, I'm messing, because my car was brand new.
Yeah.
Right when I started messing with it, it's a brand new car. Everybody's like, don't touch it. It's perfect the way it is. But so yeah, you go through anxiety about it, But like I say, you do your homework. You try to be as careful as you can, and if you ever feel like something is out of your, abilities,
your realm of possibility,
just don't do it. Yeah, just either have somebody help you, or have a mechanic do it. That way you don't, for example, my the headers on my car, that takes a level, of expertise that I just don't have. So I would not, I wouldn't have tried to do that myself. Even if it would have saved me money, I would have been like, no, I'll pay somebody to do that. But little things you can do, axles, coils, springs, whatever, stuff like that. Stuff really isn't as complicated as some people think,
Yeah.
So I would encourage it,
Yeah.
But.
Well, what was the first modification you did that you did and you were like, oh shit, like I did that. Like it like opened your eyes to like that whole realm of possibility.
How easy it is?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Or whichever one was the first one that you were like, oh
The
shit. Like,
exhaust.
what was it? The exhaust?
Yeah, we installed the Borla Type S catback exhaust on the Mustang, and I actually did it with Lenny.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And because and it's really just bolts, but that's all it is. You know, you jack the car up. Hopefully you have a lift. If not, you know, I guess you can do it on jacks. But it's basically just bolt something off, you know, bolt it back on.
Yeah.
And that's really how simple it is, you know. And some people, the same with, I think I helped Lenny install his air intake one time in the parking garage of Studio.
Yeah.
One night, yeah. Like after Studio. This was after Studio. It was dark as hell. So we drove the car into the garage for the lighting. And one thing about like current cars is sometimes they don't come with a jack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So, because they don't have spares, you know, they have run flats or whatever. Or they give you that little air compressor thing. And so we needed to jack his car up. This guy did not have a jack, you know? And so whatever, it was fun, man. You know, we just sat there and basic hand tools and installed his air intake, you know? And
dude, dope.
It's fun. It's fun. You know, it bonds you.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of cursing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely what I want to explore. Like, I think, like, kind of like what I said, like these certain things that we're drawn to, they really connect in ways that we don't perceive them to right off the bat. But when you really get to the bare bones of what you're doing in either field, let's say architecture and like, I guess cars or modifying cars, like that camaraderie, the understanding that, you know, we're both off learning and on the course for a common objective. So, you know, those two tandems kind of like go together.
Yeah, that tends to bond people, you know, like a lot of, I don't want to say hardship, but just the experience of feeling, I guess, vulnerable from not knowing necessarily what you're doing, or, you know, it being the first time, or, you know, whatever. I think that really helps solidify people's, you know, your trust in them, you know. And then
yeah, absolutely.
When you're working on a project together, as far as design and stuff, you know, there has to be that level of trust. You know, I need to, when we split up and I say, you handle this, I'll handle that, you know, I need to be able to know that, you know, that you're going to hold up your end, even if it doesn't come out right, you know, or even if it, you know, if you mess up and, you know, you have to have confidence that the person is going to, like, you know,
own up to it.
Do their part, you know, and that's all that matters. You know, yeah. I think that's why we mesh so well together, you know. It's like,
absolutely.
You know, you were definitely willing to, you know, like, to be more than willing to go above and beyond, you know, anything I ever asked you, you know. Yeah. So, you know, and that back and forth is kind of like, you know, it's like Scotty and Jay and NJ, you know, like I toss you the rock and you do something way over what I expected you were going to do, you know, and then I'm like, oh shit, well now I got to do something, well, you know, I got to bring my shit because I don't want to be the guy, you know, that's slacking. So
I think that is something that I don't know if everyone gets that experience in school. But I think towards the end, hopefully everybody got an experience at least once or twice. I've been pretty lucky with all the people I've been paired up with. You especially, man, that last project that we did, you know,
that was fun.
Apart from the other projects, which they're definitely fulfilling, like they're amazing to do, but there's something about building a physical one-to-one piece or model or structure that has to work, you know. And ours that's what it was. We took a robotics class, and then we were tasked with fitting a panel and a series of like these joints into you know, for layman's terms, a sill or a window encasement in between like a
facade.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that we saw work was that we both brought ideas to the table, and when one thing worked, we were like, okay, we got to go with this. And when something else worked or didn't work, we were like, okay, we could test these things out, but we got to throw out X, Y, and Z.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's the key to a good like group project, is being able to pick what works and pick what doesn't work and just be ready to move forward.
Yeah, not being afraid of of letting something go that you might like but might not be right for that project.
Absolutely.
And we had a lot of things that we wanted to do, but just the amount of time it would have taken to fabricate it was just too much.
Yeah.
And we had to, like leave it behind and move towards something else, and ultimately found something that, I think our final, like the rendering and the just the model of itself, I think had really evolved. And I think that's why, that project went so well for us. It's just from the start to the end, it was really kind of like, a whole different
evolving
project. Yeah,
exactly. I don't know, like I don't know if you feel this way about that design process, but it was almost easier when it was like a physical thing or a physical project that you're molding and building and crafting, to be iterative and quick about being able to keep things. And I wonder how that could be translated into kind of like the digital, because I struggle with keeping and throwing away, and I'm good at iterative processes, but when it comes to that kind of stuff, like, oh shit, I should throw this out, or maybe this doesn't work. Like I struggle with that at times.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, when you have something physical, at least with the models that we did, like you can see this works, this doesn't. It's clear.
Yeah.
In the digital kind of media, it's it's a lot harder to distinguish. Because if something, like I said, if something looks good, it looks good.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like a slightly different, you tend to like, okay.
Yeah.
But so that's definitely challenging as far as working with digital media, as opposed to the physical one. With the models we made, there were parts, you remember, that they were too thin, so they would crack easily, and those are not things that you're going to be able to see on your computer.
Right. Absolutely.
On the computer, it keeps its form. It doesn't break.
We were getting back into a couple other things. We were kind of talking off mic about what we've been doing to pass the time, and we both said gaming. And we brought up the new Call of Duty, how it's like a battle royale, and then you kind of brought it to light that it was based off a movie, right?
Right. So there was a Japanese movie a couple years back called, actually, I believe it's called Battle Royale.
Yeah.
And the premise was that basically it was like high school students would get selected, kind of like Hunger Games type of idea. And they would get sent into this arena. They'd get selected at random, and they would get sent into this arena. And basically they would have to, fight to stay alive. And I think it's every hour or every couple hours, the fighting arena would get smaller and smaller.
Okay.
Which is where the whole
battle royale.
Yeah, exactly. So ultimately there could only be obviously one person, and it's I think it's actually really gory. It's really gory.
I think I found it. Let's see. Let me share my screen. Let me see if this is the right one. Can you see it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Super dope.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, definitely worth rent or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's more gory than you would think. But yeah, that battle royale thing took off, man.
It did. And initially I kind of was like, I don't really know if I want to jump into a new game type or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of like pushing it off to the side. But I played a couple games with the similar game type. And I think I'm coming around to it. So I think that would be cool to get a bunch of people from Studio and like hop on and play it.
Destroy you guys, yeah.
Yeah, dude, let's go. That'd be dope.
Yeah, man, I never played the Fortnite stuff. I never got into that.
Me neither.
And I haven't played Call of Duty in what seems like years, but probably since we started school, I stopped playing it.
Yeah.
Now that, we've been on the quarantine, I've got a couple hours of gaming in to, keep my mind sane.
Yeah.
But I played Final Fantasy VII.
How'd you like that?
Oh, I loved it. It's a great game. I actually had, when it originally came out, I not at first, but a couple years after it had come out, I tried to give it a shot because I never played an RPG before or whatever.
Yeah.
And halfway through the game, a friend of mine ruined the ending. Like, he spoiled the ending for me.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that's it. I'm not playing this anymore. So when they they announced it a couple years back that they were gonna re-release it or remake it, I was like, okay. And then it happened during the quarantine, so it was a perfect time for a little gaming session.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my favorite RPG was definitely Fallout.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm on Fallout 4, so I think that's been
Fallout 4 is good. Yeah.
Those games are really fun, man. I think the whole quest-based thing. I didn't get to some of the other ones, but like Fallout's really been the only one that I've been into. I should probably branch out and see what else there is.
You should try Skyrim.
Yeah, I played a little bit of Skyrim. I didn't own a copy, so once I didn't have it anymore, I really fell out of it.
Yeah, I'm not really. I wasn't really into the whole idea of the whole fantasy thing, and I gave it a shot, man, and it's wild. It's a crazy game. The Witcher too. Witcher was another game.
Like
the Netflix series.
Yeah, that was great. That series was great.
Yeah, they have that's based off the books, and the game are loosely based off the books.
Okay.
So it's not the exact story, but it's close enough. But it's a good story. I think everybody, the last couple of years, I think there's been this kind of shift as far as media and just movies. I remember there was a time where comic books were considered nerdy, and fantasy was considered too nerdy and all this. And the last couple of years, especially with the MCU and stuff like that, you see a lot of people, exposed to these, different types of literature or whatever you want to call it, and I think a lot of people are starting to realize, hey, you know what, Game of Thrones, it's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people, if you would tell them, oh, it's a story about dragons and stuff like that, they'd immediately write it off. But thanks to Game of Thrones, a lot of people are reading more fantasy novels or stuff like that, So
yeah, absolutely.
Kind of cool.
I think it's very interesting to see, especially like you said, from a medium or a media perspective. The fact that flip happened is interesting to see what people are able to create from it. But I mean, I'm excited to see what other, I guess, Netflix or streaming service series there are to come out.
I think the next one's HBO Max.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the next one. I think that's premiering sometimes next month or something. But that one's interesting just because that one it's all Warner Media. Mm-hmm. So it's gonna have Cartoon Network stuff. It's gonna have Rick and Morty. It's gonna have South Park. It's gonna have all this huge catalog of stuff,
on top of the HBO,
on top of the
catalog?
HBO stuff. Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
when
It's
I
gonna
had
be wild.
HBO, you actually referred a series to me, and I watched it. And let me tell you, that series was amazing.
True Detective,
No, which one was it?
Chernobyl.
No, that was a dope series. That was one of the best series
Yeah.
I've seen in a very long time.
That was very
great.
and I was scared to death. I was like, these people almost ended the entire earth, man. That thing was scary. But
It was nuts. Like that whole timeline and like just the information that came out, I was like, oh shit, that's how that happened.
yeah. I think a lot of people before that series had almost not forgotten it, but I mean, I think it had already, like receded into a lot of people's minds that actually happened and could happen anytime.
Yeah, and I think we were like reminded. I can't remember exactly when it was. When was it that there was the tsunami that hit Japan? Yeah, people were very worried about it.
It's been interesting to see in the last couple of days with the quarantine is how the earth is just like, I guess, healing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been seeing a lot of videos of like a lot of the marine life, returning to South Florida and, a couple of like rays, like manta ray, off of Biscayne.
That's nuts.
And even in Florence, the dolphins swimming in the canals and stuff like that. And it's just kind of interesting to the idea of if we kind of serious about like, like healing as far as the planet is, that this is the type of thing that it would take, like it would take a commitment from everybody on a global scale to just kind of like stop driving their cars, stop, it seems like we're going to have to, because once this thing is over and the quarantine is over, it seems like we're just going to have to kind of watch it go away again,
Yeah.
Once everybody returns.
It's going to be a sad thing to see. But I think it's definitely eye-opening in the fact that, a lot of times you'll hear about like the whole global warming, negative impact to the health of the earth and the environment that's going on because of X, Y, and Z. And then you hear people say, if we do cut down on carbon emissions, the world will return to a better, state. And most people were kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever you say. And
right.
It is like, oh shit, like, yeah.
Right, we have the proof.
Yeah, which is nuts. It's great. The fact that the proof is in the pudding.
It's crazy that scientists actually know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, and it's been such a relatively short time frame, right? Like imagine if this thing would go on for a year or two. Imagine the type of, like change we could actually see. I mean, the beaches, themselves are just clearing up,
Yeah.
Just from us not being there, which is, I mean, as far as, the emissions and stuff like that, I think if people could work from home, they should be allowed to,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. 100%, man. I agree with that because, a lot of the functions that we do right now in I guess the architecture field, but particularly a general of office fields where you have a brick and mortar office, most of that stuff can be done at home. Very rarely do you actually physically need to be in the office, unless you're going to submit something, I guess, or print and sign and seal if you're still doing that. Because I know a lot of people are turning in things digitally. So, maybe this is going to show people that the idea of a brick and mortar can be turned into something else.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have the luxury of working in digital media where we can work remotely. Not everybody has that. I guess.
Yeah, not everybody has that luxury, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I think that if you can, I mean, the whole thing is it's with architecture that it's very collaborative. Like you said, like just being in that kind of creative space just kind of facilitates, different sorts of creativity that maybe you wouldn't get if you were, by yourself at home, So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's also that argument to be made, but I don't know, man. I kind of want to see where this goes.
Mhm.
If the Earth gets to heal for a couple more weeks, by all means.
Yeah, as long as people are being safe, I think is one thing. As long as the, I guess what they're saying, the curve is flattening. As long as there's not as many people passing away. Unfortunately, there's been quite a few.
Yeah.
A lot. And if we could kind of come together after this whole thing, and I guess see where can we cut back from, like you said, going to the office 24/7 when it's not needed. If you could cut that out, what would that do drastically for the environment and just for people in general?
Yeah. We wouldn't need so many parking spaces, so many parking lots.
Yeah.
Who knows, man?
It's something to think about. But some other medium of I guess media or art, I guess you can call it, or comedy is memes, man. This quarantine has produced so many.
That was a smooth segue.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, man, I saw some things that you've been posting on your story, and they've been hilarious.
Yeah, man, I don't like any good meme lord. I rip them off. But what's really been getting me is the whole Tiger King thing. Like,
Yes,
the memes alone is just worth it. Just watch the show. If you haven't watched it, just watch it just so you can enjoy the memes, because the memes are gold. They're absolutely gold.
that whole situation was nuts. I didn't think that was I didn't think it was real. I thought it was just like, okay, they took a scripted show and they made this whole thing up, and then at least that's what I thought the first episode. And then after you go through, you're like, okay, there's no way they can write this shit.
Yeah, man. Joe Exotic, my boy Joe Exotic was like he was the least weird person of the whole group.
I know. How strange is that?
It was wild, man. The whole polygamy thing, and then the whole thing with Carol Baskins.
Carol Baskin. Yeah.
It was fucking gold, man. It was 100% worth a watch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so. And just the shock factor and shock value that you get out of it.
Yeah. Like, these people are wild. Bro, just the fact that you can buy a tiger for $2,000, Yeah. I'm like, $2,000? That's the cheapest shit.
That's great. Like, you think about it, you could buy a used Honda Civic, or you can
a fucking tiger.
Buy a tiger. America. It's America's.
Exactly. But yeah, man, that show was wonderful. That helped kill, some time during this whole quarantine thing, man. Because I've been struggling trying to find stuff to keep me entertained, to be honest with you. Because I mean, you can only watch and play games for so long a day, before it's just like, okay, I'm losing my mind, and I'm a homebody, Chris. And now because I have to stay home, I'm like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. I got you. It's tough. It's tough.
Have you seen the Harley Quinn cartoon?
No, I haven't.
It's good.
I'll have to check it out.
Good.
I'll have to check it out.
It's violent. It's funny as hell.
Yeah.
It's funny as hell. It's almost as good as, like, remember Batman the animated series?
Mm-hmm.
It's that good.
Damn.
It's that good.
Okay.
It's just too bad that it's beyond that DC stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I mean, you can get a 7-day trial, bro, and binge it.
Yeah. Oh, dude, definitely. I'm gonna do that. That sounds great.
Yeah. Because I mean, the movie I heard didn't do so well. The Harley Quinn movie. Yeah,
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did.
Yeah, that sucks.
But yeah, man, they're shutting everything down. The movies, everything.
Mm-hmm.
You seen anything good?
Movie wise, I don't think so. Like, I think the last thing I saw was probably Tiger King that was noteworthy, funny, I guess, or as like a series. Other than that, I've been watching like comedy specials.
Anything.
Yeah, Tom Segura, Chris D'Elia, those were good.
Tom Segura's good.
Yeah.
Damn, yeah, I can't remember. I mean, the last comedy special I think I saw was with you. Was this guy Magical?
Oh, Al Madrigal.
Al Madrigal.
Yes. Dude, I love that.
That guy was great. Yeah. Bill Burr sometimes.
Oh, Burr is good. Like, listening to a good rant.
Yeah.
He's good. Him and Lewis Black are really good for that.
Yeah, Lewis Black.
Whenever you need a good angry rant.
I like Jeselnik, Anthony Jeselnik.
Yeah, he's funny.
Yeah, he's funny, just because he's so out there, But
yeah.
That's another thing. That's like stand-up. I guess, how do you think stand-up, how do you think a stand-up act compares to an architectural performance, an architectural presentation?
Ooh, I think that's good. And I'm going to take two sides to this. I agree that there's some kind of tie in there. And I'm going to take something that Joe Rogan says a lot, because I think his comedy is great. And he says that it's kind of like a hypnotist act. Like, you're hypnotizing people to get on the same train as you, train of thought as you, and you're having these people go along with an idea. And I think with architecture, it's almost easier to do that because you have a visual element.
Okay.
And we speak in a lot of jargon.
Yeah, 100%.
Sprinkle the jargon in like Salt Bay. Crits 100%. Up. They eat that shit up. If it works.
The art of bullshitting. Yeah.
Nicole said that I was a really good bullshitter in undergrad.
I remember you told me that.
I'm pretty sure she's right because I made it this far. So,
well, I mean, I've seen some people that had absolutely no work, and they were just able to talk their way through it, And then I've seen some people that put in a lot of work and couldn't, I don't know whether it was because of the pressure, the stress, they couldn't verbalize it in a way that was,
articulate and
graceful. Right. Yeah. And they just got hammered, and just to go back on the whole comedian, analogy. I think with architecture, you're telling a story, right? Mm-hmm. And in the same way that a comedian kind of, has to feel out the crowd, what works, what doesn't. I think in a presentation, in a way, you have to kind of,
know your audience, if you will.
Yeah, kind of know which way to lean or whatever. Absolutely. And it's kind of difficult because in the comedic, act, you're getting feedback as far as people laughing at your jokes or not, and that's your cue. This is working. That's not working. Mm-hmm. With us, sometimes you're not getting any feedback until the very end. So it's like, you got to bring it, and just hope for the best.
Yeah, and then really like plan out that gesture, or that, I guess, poetic nature, as I've been referring to it over the last couple of days. I've been critting. Ramses teaches, so I was helping him out with some crits.
Oh yeah, how's that going?
Good. There's a lot of really good work coming out of there. So it's really interesting to see that. And FAU had some crits, so I was critting for them as well.
Nice.
And
nice. how does it feel being on the other side of the crick? Because I've worked with some kids as far as like architecture stuff, and I like looking back. There was a time where I regret not being more open to this kid's ideas. You know, like I told myself, well, that wasn't the assignments and whatever. But looking back, I was like, nah, I should have just let him do whatever the hell he wanted. You know.
I think as far as critiquing goes, if you were in the studio setting, you know, because of course sometimes it's business people that are critiquing architecture, but if you're an architect creating architecture students, be cognizant of the fact that you were in their shoes at one point, you know. You know a lot more than they know at this point, and my key thing would be give them something that they can walk away with and use throughout the rest of their career. You know, instead of saying, you know, your line weights are not that good or your drawings are bad, say, hey, you know, maybe you can use XYZ tool in XYZ fashion in order to perfect this thing. You know, because a lot of times you would get, oh, this is bad, this, that, and the third, or this is good, this, that, and the third, where it's like, okay, great. But if there's no rationale behind the critique, I think it's pointless, even if it is a positive one.
I think, well, yeah, I've had a lot of, there's been, you know, professors and jurors that are very political, you know, very, like you said, very positive as far as feedback and stuff like that. And I feel sometimes I kind of want to get that, like that brutally honest opinion, but that's me personally. You know what I mean? I think I can appreciate that. It might hurt my feelings. All right. I mean, it might suck. And I think I had one professor really give it to me one time. But looking back, she was right. You know, Sanchez, another one of our professors that I hold extremely high, his opinion extremely high now. Man, we used to go back and forth just because, you know, he was brutally honest. And at the time, I took it very personally. And looking back, he was 100% right, bro.
Like, yeah, I've heard that numerous times.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard that about him specifically a lot, and it goes to show that we really did have a lot of really good, a really good foundation as far as who was honing our skills or helping us hone our skills. So,
I mean, it's like that old saying, you know, you gotta take it for what it's worth. You gotta, you know, get what you can from it. Whatever you're gonna put into it, you're gonna get in return. You know, absolutely. And it might not lead you where you want to go, but you'll always be moving forward. You know, and I think that sometimes we want to do something, and a professor will come along and be like, no, you know, or maybe not, you know, this. Tell us, you know, maybe try something else, you know, and I think that there's something to be said to, you know, to explore that that path least traveled, you know.
Oh, so, absolutely. I actually love that phrase. Exploring the path less traveled is. I think it's something, like you said, you hit it on the head there. Definitely explore that, you know.
Yeah.
Especially in school. School is the place where you should explore and be imaginative, but also hone your technical stuff.
Right. Yeah. And as far as like teaching, you know, or stuff like that, I was lucky enough to be part of AIA Miami has a summer camp for kids. Nice. And, you know, they're young kids. We're talking about like anywhere between the ages of 5 all the way up to 13.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe, yeah. And man, I will tell you, Chris, man, there were some little kids that knew their stuff,
Yeah.
like designing and, drawings, very organized, very meticulous, very creative.
Yeah.
Like they were teaching them Revit.
What?
Yeah, they were teaching them Revit. Yeah. And so like once a week, it's only 2 weeks, it's not, it's a little summer camp. It's not, but once a week they would have to they would go to a little classroom and they would sit down and learn Revit.
That's
These
great.
kids were like 10 years old, man, And of course, they're kids, so they don't know. They're like, whatever. But every once in a while, you'd have one kid in there that knew exactly that he wanted to be an architect, and would get in there and be very serious about his model, So better than some grad students, bro. I'm telling you.
Oh,
Better than some grad students. Yeah.
Oh man.
It's a great program. Yeah. I don't know if you've been to any of the stuff that the AIA Miami does, but it's really like a great place to network. They put on, the gala, of course, every year for the AIA awards and stuff like that, which is, it's wonderful. The lady who runs the stuff down there is named Marilyn.
Yeah.
Sweetheart, man. Just anybody who meets her just completely falls in love with her,
Yeah.
But
that's great. I actually got to attend the gala last year. And
the Moore building?
Was it the Moore building? No, it was the historic Hampton House.
Okay.
So, and that was a really great experience. Like you said, a place to network and just, almost like getting into that studio or collaborative environment again. It was really nice.
Right. And everybody gets drunk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I danced with Canavis there.
That's great.
Yeah. Canavis grabbed me and pulled me on the dance floor, bro. I was dancing with Canavis. So it was a wonderful time,
Yeah. Things like that are kind of why we get into this whole field, Yeah. I think because, throughout the time you meet these people and you're like, oh, okay, I know this person through school. And then you're like, well, no, this harbored a whole new friendship, like Nicole, someone that we had on the other platform on the Architecture Rundown. Ramses and I were talking to Nicole about things going on at work and everything. And I've known Nicole since D1, D2. So, it just goes to show you, like, now that we're graduated, we still keep in touch and things like that. So I just think this is a really special field and it has its rough points, like we kind of talked about before.
100%.
But when you make it through, it's definitely worth it for more ways than one.
It's anybody who's thinking about, joining architecture, and don't let I would say don't let the stories deter you.
Yeah.
Right. Because like if you asked you or me, I would tell you, yeah, it was hard. There was nights where I did not sleep, yada yada. But I think when you look at it and it's the whole thing, the whole picture, I think it's definitely a very difficult field. It's meticulous. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily difficult as it is tedious sometimes, right? Like you're going to have times where, you're going to have to do something constant over and over again. But you meet great people. You meet intelligent, creative people, passionate people from all forms of life. And I'm sure that's true for a lot of fields, but I think something special about architecture, and as far as the degree itself, is that it's a degree in problem solving. You can apply it to a lot of different fields, and that's one of the great things about studying architecture is that you can go into architecture, you can go into design, digital fabrication, all these other fashion you know. So many different things you can do with it, you know. It's a, you know, it's a great degree to have.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. You go into cinematography, photography, you know, we can go on for days. You know, we've talked about it before. You know, there's people that started a brewery. MIA Brewery was started by some architecture students. You know,
That's the one in where is it? In
Doral.
Hialeah? Doral?
Yeah.
Which part of Doral?
Is it in Doral? I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I don't know Miami too well. I know Broward, and then I know a little bit of Miami because I work and we went to school down there. But other than that,
okay.
Let me see.
Either way, it's that's why I think what you're doing on this is so great, because it's true. Like we have so many different interests as people, you know, as designers, you know, that you'll meet somebody from landscape architecture or interior design, and then they're into this type of music, or and the other person's into photography, and then everybody get together and shoot a music video one day, or something like that. There's so many different interests and skills that that we can all kind of collaborate and make something special.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like what birthed this whole platform, that collaborative nature, like you said. I'm kind of scatterbrained when it comes to things I'm interested in, so it kind of like birthed in this whole thing that could be interpreted in so many ways. But yeah, you mentioned music. I'm like really big into music, bro, especially like hip hop, rap, and even rock specifically. What have you been listening to lately? Have you been listening to a lot of music lately?
Man, you know what? I honestly, I can't say that I have been listening to music, man. It was odd. But I guess and why is because I tend to listen to music when I'm in my car. I'm driving a lot, at least recently. And when I'm home, when I'm working, the music that I've gotten a lot into, like audiobooks and stuff like that lately.
Yeah.
Just because I'm trying to trick myself into believing that I'm doing something productive. So, but I've been finishing this Gates of Fire, which is by Stephen Pressfield. It's a story about the Battle of Thermopylae and stuff like that. But I haven't really been. I put my records away. Like I said, I recently moved, so all my stuff's in storage, so I can't even listen to my records now. So, what are you jamming to?
Recently I've been listening to a lot of Griselda.
Okay.
Like a rap group from upstate New York.
Okay.
And they just have this old school New York sound. It's very gritty, very grimy, and I like really appreciate that kind of shit. I think it's super, super dope. Especially to see now, like hip hop has gotten to a specific part of the genre where other things are kind of, I guess, more the norm, which I guess is cool if that's what you're into. But I've been listening to that. It's three artists in particular, but I've also been listening to a lot of Freddie Gibbs and Currency, and I don't know. I can't really think of much else that I've been listening to. Every once in a while, I have Nipsey Hussle on repeat for a couple days. And then every once in a while, I like to go back to some Hendrix and some Zeppelin, and just kind of like sit back with those.
The classics.
Yeah. I like to go back to that every once in a while and like just kind of get in that atmosphere.
So, yeah, I got to check some out. Like I said, I don't listen to the radio most of the time. The Spotify or whatever. So I find myself listening to the same couple of songs that I listen to all the time. I got to do some more exploring. Audio wise, but send me some playlists, man. I'll check them out.
Yeah,
See, maybe I'll get into something new.
Yeah, I found some new lo-fi hip hop beats that I think are pretty dope.
Nice.
So I'll send those over to you. But yeah,
Do you
man.
find yourself doing a lot of like exploring into the whole music producing or no?
Yeah, I actually downloaded something called Melodics. It's kind of to help teach you like chord progressions, I guess you would say, and like counting and understanding like music theory. So it'll give you like something to play, and you have to like mirror it, almost like a Guitar Hero-esque kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So I downloaded that. Cool. The trial only gives you 5 minutes a day, but I mean, that's cool.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Like it's just like with me sketching, you know, like I find myself sketching all the time. Like even when my mind is wandering, right? I find myself like sometimes like sketching or whatever. And I think with musicians, I'm sure it's the same thing, you know, that even when they're kind of like in their own thoughts, they're you know, I don't know, maybe like composing in their mind or it's something that's constantly with you is what I'm saying, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's something I've been meaning to get into. Do you sketch often? I've been meaning to sketch on paper and even in digital form. I kind of want to get Procreate for the iPad. And
yeah, I tried Procreate and it's a great tool. I just can't. I don't know if I'm just too used to like the feel of paper and pencil, you know, or like I can't get over the like when you're doing it on an iPad or whatever, it feels like you're drawing on glass, you know, and that I can never get over that. Yeah. So I can never get over that. But I've attempted a couple apps digitally because obviously that's where things are going to go. But I still have my little trusty sketchbook, you know.
Okay. Same.
Throw some notes in there, even though I've gone back through some of my my old sketchbooks to read my thoughts, you know. And bro, it's like a diary.
Yeah,
it really is. Like I could tell where I was emotionally, you know.
Yeah.
Like when it got really stressful, I could tell by just how how I was drawing at the moment. But
yeah, I definitely want to get into more sketching and just I guess visualization of ideas. I feel like I've always been into writing a lot, so that's always been kind of like my sketch, if you will.
Sorry. Okay.
But I want to explore sketching. The thought process I think is there for architecture, but I want to be able to think through sketching.
Right.
So
that's cool. Yeah. Sometimes I guess I do it as a form of just like to relieve stress. I guess just to like let it out. But I do a lot of weird stuff to relieve stress. So, yeah. I like to go shooting to relieve stress.
Yeah,
which most people find stressful. So
yeah, you actually took me shooting for the first time, which was dope.
Yeah, we were supposed to go again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when that's going to be able to happen, but we have to go again. I have to put some rounds through the.
Have you been since?
No. I was going to go one of these last weekends right before this all happened. I was thinking, I was like, you know what, let's go. Jess has a gun and she has the MP 2.0, M&P 2.0, and I wanted to put some rounds through there because I think that's a great gun. She said that when she put rounds through it, it was really nice. So that was something I think I want to get into, but that kind of like another layer adds on to something I want to get into, but I kind of just have to put the time in for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are afraid of shooting. I don't know. For you, like, what were your thoughts the first time you went?
The first, like the initial idea, I've always thought it was like very interesting. I thought it was something like that I wanted to get into as far as like like an accuracy thing, constantly practicing something in order to hone accuracy.
Right.
So that's the way I was going into it, and I could definitely still see myself doing it. But the initial act, I guess, of doing it, I think the first thing was getting over the noise in the range.
The gunshots.
Yeah. Which I got over after being there for a couple minutes. You get used to it.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing was form.
Form, right? Yeah. I think a lot of people. I think more people should try it. To be honest with you, I think once you become familiar with it, it's less scary.
Yeah.
But it's also important to understand that it's something like the safety procedures are extremely important, and as long as you follow those, then you're completely safe. My first time shooting, I was when I was in the Corps.
Yeah.
So obviously boot camp, it's not as relaxed as being out here. So they could care less if you're scared. So so I was kind of thrown in there. It was my first gun I shot was a rifle, and I'm 16.
Yeah.
And it was it was live fire exercise, the whole nine. There was no time to think about whether you're scared or not. So I just kind of got thrown into the deep end with that. So, but yeah, I mean, I love shooting, man. For me, it's like you said, it's precision.
Yeah.
I find it extremely relaxing, which is a weird thing to say. But it's
I think I get where you're coming from with the whole idea of it being relaxing, because to me, I found myself, I think a lot, and I'm pretty scatterbrained a lot of the time. So focusing your thoughts and your energy in one specific thing for one specific amount of time, like that's all you're focused on.
Right. Yeah. And I was, I think for me at least, I fell in love with shooting after, I was a couple years into the Marines, and I became a weapons instructor.
Nice.
So I had to go through a course where I had to learn the ins and outs of how to shoot, and shoot every gun the Marine Corps had and all that stuff, and then turn around and have to teach it.
Yeah.
And I guess because I finally understood how much your breathing and your muscle relaxation and all that stuff came into point. I think that's when it became therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
Just when I went to shoot, I had to force myself to relax. I had to force, take deep breaths, and like you said, the precision of it is what's so alluring to me. So yeah. That's one of the, I guess, the hobbies I have, but unfortunately I can't do it while quarantined as much as I would like to. My neighbors would have something to say about it.
Do you have any thoughts or wants to go to competition shooting, like to get into that realm of it?
I would love to get into competition shooting. I actually have a CZ Shadow 2 right now, which is it's a competition 9mm. But it's I think you shot it.
Yeah. I shot that in the SIG.
Yeah. And that's more like a competition based gun, but at the same time it's I don't think, from what I've understood, there's like a weight limit for competition shooting, like as far as the weapon.
Okay.
And that one doesn't qualify, so I'd have to find something else or whatever. But yeah, I would love to, man. I would love to get into competition shooting. I think it's a cool hobby to just kind of have on the side. It's expensive, just because of the ammunition, but
yeah. I bet.
Yeah. But I mean, you could always practice with a 22, or something like that, and then just apply what you learned to, to the bigger caliber rounds. But we'll see. I'm gonna see. I definitely want to get into that. I want to go diving some more now that the waters are clear.
Yeah.
Maybe see some more marine life out in the Keys or something.
Yeah. Maybe you'll get some dope shots of that, man.
Yeah. With the drone, maybe go out there, but we'll see, man. Hopefully this thing will end soon and we can all, go outside for 10 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that'd be great. Dude, we gotta do this again, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out. Is there any last minute thing you wanted to like kind of touch on or catch up about?
We talked earlier before about how's married life and stuff like that with you. I feel like I haven't seen you in so long, bro. Like it's been so long since.
Been forever.
We hung out. Yeah. I don't know, man. I know Suf is recently gonna graduate too.
Yeah.
So maybe it'd be cool if we all got together and do something.
Yeah.
Collaborate on something. Yeah.
Dude, I'm super down. I'm really excited. I'm glad to finally be like being able to reach out to everybody and get back into the swing of things of as far as like connecting with friends and just catching up and seeing what everybody's up to and potentially being able to collaborate on some stuff. I really want to go take some pictures, man. We definitely have to go out shooting one of these days.
Absolutely.
Both ways. We have to definitely hit the range and we have to definitely take
shooting and shooting.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
sounds good, man. Maybe we can go to the Cars and Coffee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next Cars and Coffee.
Dude, I love it. Yeah, that sounds like an amazing idea.
Sounds cool, man. All right, man. Well, thanks for having me.
Anytime, man. Thank you for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it.
No sweat. All right. I'm going.
Later.